Good morning, traders. Haven't done a video for a couple days. Be sure and like my video if you get a chance. I really appreciate comments below. Really like the feedback and stuff. So we'll get into it here, guys. So we got through the big bond auctions. So we had a twofold event on the bond auctions. We had the international community wanted to break the Trump's tariff policies, and the best way of doing that is for them collectively to be in a buyer's strike, and additionally even liquidate some of their bond holdings. And going into the auctions last week, and what we saw was the credit spreads widen to levels beyond 2007 financial crisis levels. So it was really bloody in the credit markets, and we saw Trump come out. He was the first one to come out and blink on the tariff news. So that happened Wednesday, and I had mentioned Wednesday morning. I said, guys, look out! Right around 1 to 2 o'clock, this thing could get really exciting. And I was even that morning talking about the potential of some sort of deal that was going to be announced. I was actually looking towards maybe he was going to sign a deal again with a country or something on a tariff deal. Yeah, I was actually surprised, just like everybody else, that he went and postponed a bunch of the international tariffs. Okay, so now he has blinked, and it's really going to be difficult for him to, he's coming in from, he showed his hand now in on this whole tariff stuff, and it's really going to make it much more difficult in the art of the deal negotiating going forward here. So just be very mindful of that. It's probably not going to be nearly as promising to get equal trade deals as we were before that. But everything was starting to unwind and fall apart really quick there. We were hours away from absolute total chaos. I mean, it was getting there, guys. We were just about ready. If he hadn't come in and do what he did when he did, it was getting bad there. So I'll tell you that. It was something, I tell you guys. So we do have 5-year tips auctions this week. So we do have one auction. It's a lesser event on the calendar this week. So be very mindful of that. We have short squeeze happening, and it makes a lot of sense. And we have the quad witching this week. So coming in, crushing volatility down into the mid to low 20s makes all the sense in the world going into quad witching. Everybody who's put on that insurance, they're the ones at most risk for losing their money because the money's already been committed. So the new money players now this week, they're looking to take back all of that big short in the markets. And we've just kicked off earnings season. They weren't that bad. In fact, I think J.P. Morgan still offering a $5 billion share buyback, or is more, maybe more than that. I can't remember. But at any rate, the share buyback engine has not completely just completely shut down. So obviously there is still optimism out there in the markets, and there was a lot of concern that all these companies would just completely shut down share buybacks, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Okay. The big thing this week, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. Tomorrow we have retail sales numbers hitting the tape, and what I think is going to happen with all of this tariff news, and now that we've had the tariff news taken off, the retail sales numbers are probably going to blow out what any expectations, as a lot of people ran out to buy cars, ran out to buy stuff, uh, potentially buy stuff in anticipation of these tariffs. We probably have companies who went out and bought front-loaded inventory, so they went and tried to get as much inventory as they could put in the warehouse, before those tariffs started hitting. So just be very mindful of that, going forward here. There's probably now that wouldn't directly impact on the retail sales, but I'm just saying, there is, reason to think that we could be having strong auto numbers from these retail sales numbers going into tomorrow for that. Okay. There is a CPI number out this morning around 8. So let's be very mindful of that. So basically, Trump's policies there initially were deflationary. Okay. And I don't know how long that's going to last. We saw the flight to safety in the bonds market just completely blow up. So this whole idea that this is really largely deflationary on the global scheme may not be the case. So that could unwind very very quickly too. So let's be very mindful of that. The people that are really getting hit the hardest are probably going to be the farmers, but we have to keep in mind uh, grains, grains and stuff. Uh, the Trump administration really wants some of these core. You guys don't realize just how important oats and soybeans, how the wheat are to the overall economy. And if anybody been out bought cereal lately, it's just ridiculous. The idea $8 for a box of cereal is ridiculous. Okay, you know, so this is one of those core inflationary things, getting wheat prices down and keep putting these tariffs on. We're getting these reciprocal tariffs out of China about the wheat for U.S. wheat. So a lot of U.S. wheat's not going to be sold to China. That in itself is going to be a deflationary element that actually is going to help us consumers here in the United States. So let's be very mindful of that. He's actually putting tariffs on things that's going to help us, get grocery prices back down to reasonable levels. So that is one good thing about selling less corn or less uh, farm products to China. It's not really good for the farmers, but I hear rumblings that there's going to be some sort of relief package out of Congress to help on that. But I think it definitely it's a very good development to help get these these high prices down. And I don't know about if any of you guys have gotten your property taxes yet. Oh my God! You talk about the legacy of uh, Biden economics in the inflation. I could not believe how much my property taxes went up. It's like holy shit. So, hopefully we can get some of this stuff under wraps. I mean, wow, this is devastating. Yeah, they're really irritating, And this is another rant here. The whole thing that Biden got in on for the election. They went on for months. They were going to give $18 minimum wage. That's what he got into office on. And guess what? It just completely died the moment he got into office, and nobody's even talking about it. And now, if we actually did 18 minimum wage, it's not really a big shock to the economy given the high prices, So, and they're not even talking about I just find it quite interesting, how, the politicians, it's the really lower guys, they're just not going out of their way to, to bring those their incomes up. I'm telling you, they're just not doing it. Okay. Okay, let me get into some of my charts here. Okay, guys, so I've got my VX futures on here real quick, and I want to really important this with the monkey bar indicator. I got this on a 5-day time frame, so this is from last Monday till the current price action. And I want to point out here, based on a 5-day, see how we're breaking out of value. This represents 70% of last week's trading volume. Okay, and now we are breaking out of that just to kick off the week. This is quite bullish for the market, suggesting a breakdown in the volatility futures going to kick off the week here. So we're basically breaking out of the core body of last week's volatility to the downside. Not necessarily something that I would want to fight. Everything's up this morning. This is giving me an initial indication that I probably want to stick with the trend and try not to buck the trend like trying to short the markets heavily. Just basic on this indicator right here. Now, if you go out on a 10-day, that's 5-day. This will give us for the past 2 weeks. Where's the volume? See how we're into this big volatility volume. So the core volume that caused us to break out, that was down here around 2150. Okay, guys, and we're at 31.60 right now. Okay, and that's over a 2-week time frame. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go down here, but we know for a fact that large institutions were loading the crap out of volatility. Uh, uh, you know, 2 weeks ago, around the 2150 area. Okay, so them wanting to come down here, so we know that is right there at the bottom of value. You can always put just a fib right around here, because we know that's breaking down last week's volatility down to 2150. We know this is pretty much uh you know so the 50%, you know you would think, and just an idea, this is just snowballing here, and we're going into quad witching Friday, that we could very easily, in my opinion, given just using those monkey bars, be coming down into this zone here, and that's still not a major breakdown in volatility. So we can come all the way down into the 2550, 26 area on volatility this week and still not be a major breakdown. We're still above these highs, okay? And this breakout high here. So I just be very mindful here. This is looking like what's setting up here, that we're going to be coming back down here, retesting this breakout area potentially. It's actually on 24, I guess. But the point is, close to 24. We could be easily retesting that 24 area here on the VX futures. Just be very mindful of that scenario here as we go forward here, and just be very mindful of that. So I'm really thinking what you're going to see the majority of this week is volatility breaking down. So I think that's the number one trade of the week, number one call out. I would not be trying to buy long volatility this week going into quad witching. Okay. I'm going to try to go through these charts as fast as possible here. /CH this morning. So some things going on here. So ES futures right here, right now. Where are we? So we are gapping up above. We are gapping up above the Trump news. So good. That's bullish in itself. Okay, guys. So basically, this right here, this is a resistance area after the Trump news. I could very well see if I can get a arrow here. I could very easily see us coming back down, testing the breakout. Okay, trying to find buyers right there. Okay, and then possibly coming back up. Okay, so be very mindful here. We do have a big gap this morning, so I would be quite mindful here. This right here might be a very critical back test area before we continue higher. If we come down to that, I would be looking to be a net buyer. Okay, somewhere in this area. Okay, potentially a net buyer in that. Now this on a 2-week time frame, our point of control. This is where they were loading up the puts. So below this on the 2-week time frame, this is our major resistance around the 5640 area is a major resistance area where a lot of shorts were coming into the market. So we haven't blown up that on a 2-week time frame. But if we go back and just give you some idea here, 5-day. Looky here, guys, right here on the 5-day. Okay, we're way down here on the 5-day. So the VX futures are acting inverse of the ESs right here. Okay, so we're blowing up the value from last week. We're blowing up, gapping away from last week's inventory. Okay, so be very mindful of that. Now we haven't broken through last week's highs yet. That's another thing to remember here. So that's last week's highs right there. You go back on the 10-minute. I think that's really important. Could very easily be coming back into that. So we first of all got to get into last week's highs, break through that, which we are doing that this morning. Okay, so this morning we are breaking above last week's highs, so be very mindful of that as well. So they may want to take us straight up into this resistance up here. okay, and then we'll see what happens. Or they may want to come back into last week's highs and back test. I'm not for sure. You know, we do have a nice big gap here. The volatility futures warn us that we don't want to uh, uh, get overly short. You know, at any rate, I'll be looking to be buying the dip, you know, for the back test. So I think that's a pretty there's a decent scenario here that we're going to be coming down and doing the back test and then going, but we don't have to do that. So let's see what happens here. Okay, slash NQ. NQs, look at this. We have not broken above last week's high, so this is the risk on area of the market. Typically, you would expect this thing to be breaking out, but we are over on a 2-week time frame. This is the important part, the 2-week time frame. We are over the point of control. So basically, this is the area, the bulls and the bears, the institutions were loading the boat, uh, you know, and ultimately led to the short side. So a lot of bulls and bears. So there's a lot of traders. This is giving me a big warning that the fact that we are trading above this early on this morning, that we could be early on this morning. A lot of traders could be short squeezed. The squeeze could very much continue on a two-week basis here on NQs. So even though we haven't broken above that, this here is warning me. Be very careful on the short side because it's really looking like a squeeze scenario. Russell, 2 weeks here, gapping up on the Russell right into that. Wow, you know. So, you know, we haven't decided which direction we want to go into a resistance area. You know, this is so we're right into the pivot, in my opinion. This here is representative of the pennant, the bull bear cross pennant, a pivot. So be very mindful on the 2-week time frame. Okay, see what about YM. YM acting relative weak here, guys. We are above the last week's high, so that's good, but we are below our pivot here. And so be very mindful of that as well. But my point is the NASDAQ, that's really something we got to be very mindful. Basically on a 2-week time frame, both the NASDAQ and potentially the Russell are seem to be giving us signs of leadership here. So um, we have to be mindful of that. Okay. Other things going on here. Apple this morning. Basically, I do want to point out here, this here, um, right here. This here was the announcement of global tariffs. The only one that was left on was China, you know, and Apple. Even though Apple had a really good day on that, now this morning, now Apple seems to be exempt from a lot of the Chinese tariffs from the news from Saturday morning. Okay, so now we're breaking out above. Uh, we're getting another leg higher here, but we are still below the 2-week pivot. So a lot of institutions were loading the boat up here around the 221 area. Okay, so be very mindful of this. This is still on the bearish side of trend. So we have to be very mindful. That suggests to us could be some early profit taking here to do some back tests. Then we could potentially look for the upside. So this looks great, but on the 2-week time frame, it's still a little bit weak here. NVIDIA, powerhouse here, 2-week time frame. We are actually above value on the 2-week time frame. So be quite mindful of that. And we are into the pivot. Okay, so we are not holding price above it. So we're looking for a price above the hold above 115 for it to break out of the Trump, the international tariff relief. Okay, and we haven't done that yet. So this one here is giving us a double topping bearish signal, potential bearish signal, but we are above the 2-week pivot. Okay, so this definitely keep this one on watch. So like I said, the double top. Okay, the video, Facebook. Other ones I want to look at this morning. I was looking at Google earlier. Google looks like it's ready to break out. Okay, we are above the 2-week. Let me make sure I am on 2-week, right? Yeah, the 2-week pivot, okay, showing relative strength above our 70% of inventory for the past 2 weeks, dual bullish into a double topping situation, but it hasn't broke out. Similar situation, still not breaking out, okay, on the 2 weeks. Apple was the one that is breaking out, so be very mindful of that. AMD this morning is on the top of our pre-market scans. We're breaking out of the 2 week, okay, still below the 2 week pivot. This is where all the shorts, right around the 102, the shorts started loading the boat to the short side, okay. And like I said, the charts that are above this pivot here, those are the ones most susceptible for a short squeeze, a 2 week short squeeze. So that's why I have those alerts set, like on NVIDIA and like on Google. Those could easily be breakouts early on this morning. So I definitely want to keep those on watch. And, because we are below the 102 on AMD, I'm less interested, for a 2 week value breakout. Okay, so be very mindful of that. Other ones, Amazon, right around the 2 week pivot, bull bear cross on Amazon. Okay, just really not giving me any decent relative strength or relative weakness. Microsoft, well above the 2 week pivot. So this is actually giving relative strength. This one here looks like the strongest of the breed. So be very mindful of that. Into a double top, 2 week double top, trying to break out of 2 week value as well. Okay, so set your alert on that. Maybe we get some follow through early on this morning. It is a double top until it isn't. We got to get confirmation of the breakout. We don't have it yet. It does look like it's setting up though. Other ones that I want to look at here, Google, well, Bobo for one. Bob is busting way out of the 2 week range here, so heads up on that. So it does look like the general perception here is that the Trump tariff policy has lost its fangs. Okay, you see moves like this, there is a general belief that the Trump tariff policy is slowly but surely falling apart. So let's be mindful of that going forward here. Tesla is showing some weakness this morning. So be very mindful of that. This is still below that 2 week pivot area. So be very mindful of that. This is not really one that I want to participate to the long side here. I just want to be very mindful of that. Tesla is not acting very well. Personally, this is not something that I would want to be trading that. We got Broadcom, top of the list this morning. Broadcom breaking above the 2 week value into a double topping area. This thing could very much have legs. So definitely keep this one on watch. Potential legs on Broadcom here. Other things happening here. Microsoft. Seeing the MSTR and the so we've seen some action in the so we're above. This really behaves like a risk on asset, and we were breaking above the announcement, the Trump announcement. The tariffs, most of the tariffs have already come off, and we are trying to break out above value. Last week we had a really good opportunity we did a really critical back test on Bitcoin, and it does look like it is trying to continue to build higher here. I think it was 74,000 last week. Did a very critical back test down here. Okay, double bottom back test. This thing here. We are on the bullish side of inventory. We're above the tariff announcement. This is all looking constructive to the outside. I wouldn't want to be trying to short that, in my personal opinion, on the whole Bitcoin thing. We even have PDD up this morning. It's on the list. It's another one of the China internets right into the pivot. That, like I said, on a 2 week time frame, this here is your 2 week pivot, and this gives us an idea of things that are happening here. And if you think the markets are breaking higher, we really want to be trading things above that 2-week pivot because they are on the leaders out there. And I think Apple's actually the one that, okay, Apple's still, we got Nvidia. Nvidia's still way up there. So this here is, coming back down into the pivot. You're looking to buy the dip type thing. This prior highs here, we wanted to see these prior highs at a 111 to become new support. So basically 111, even the 109 area, we want this area to become new support for NVIDIA going forward. So be very mindful. And Google's looking really possible. I like this. I really like Google. Google's my favorite chart this morning. Maybe AMD. Let me double check AMD. No, not yet. But Google does seem to be the one. Microsoft, yeah. Google and Microsoft are my two favorite charts. So let's definitely keep this on watch going forward here for the bull trend to continue. Okay, that just gives me gives you some ideas what I'm looking at this morning. Bottom line is, I think if you try to fade this in any type of size, you better wait for strategic support to do so. I wouldn't come in this morning and try to short the markets right out of the gate. You need it to come down to some supports to try to do that. So be very mindful of that going forward here in your trading. Okay. Thanks a lot for listening. Hopefully this will help you guys out. I will try to be trading today, and we'll see what happens going forward here. Ultimately, I'm looking for SPY 550 for the SPY 550 back test. That puts us, well, that's where we're at, isn't it? Okay. 540. No, it does look like. Now, let's see here. Where's it at? 540. Okay, that's showing at 540. But I'm looking for the 550 back test. Okay. So be very mindful of that going forward here. Sorry, excuse me. We do have a gap right here. And another theory that I definitely want to point out here, we're technically still in a bear market. So the odds of upside gaps being filled is much higher than an uptrending market. Okay. So be very mindful of that. If we are in bottom line is the bears still have control because of the trend we're in. So these gaps, this morning gap here, the odds of these morning gaps to be filled, like I said, much higher, than we're typically used to. So you have to be very coming in this morning. I don't really want to be net short the markets, so I'd much rather try to buy the back test. If we could fill the gap here on SPY, if we could fill the gap on the Qs, you know, try to buy the dip. That makes much more sense to me. Trying to buy the dip on the Qs here. This makes much more sense than to just go right out this morning and try to go long the markets. So be very mindful of that. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you. Try to get another one out later this week.